If you ever have felt like a stranger in a crowd, I hope you realize that you've not been alone. Very recently, I went to a conference meeting where, in spite of being with a group of people with whom I had a lot in common, we were united by similar values and interests. It did feel a little bit like there was a difficulty to find my belonging, to find my place in this group. And I have found this feeling to be true for many of my clients. Oftentimes, people talk about going out with friends or being in their families, even, or being in professional situations or conferences where they say they feel a bit like a stranger. Experiencing this feeling can be challenging and uncomfortable. For me, it invited my critic telling me that maybe I don't belong here or that I have done some things wrong. And that, of course, wasn't terribly helpful. So, what I wanted to do is to give you some ideas, some practical ideas about what you can do in similar situations in order to effectively cope with these feelings. Probably the most important bit that I did, which I think takes a lot of courage, but is a really important step whenever we're feeling uncomfortable, is to acknowledge to ourselves and validate those feelings. Being able to recognize that we're feeling somehow on the sidelines or a bit left out is incredibly important. And it's important to also acknowledge that it's really perfectly okay to feel this way and to validate that feeling in order to bring more self compassion and to really show up as a resource to ourselves. The second thing that I believe is really helpful that I have used as a practice in my own life for many, many years is to be able to engage in some deeper self reflection. You might not be able to do that just in that moment, but it's worth to maybe make a note to yourself to do that later, to go outside and really consider where those feelings might have come from. Are there really specific reasons or specific triggers that have somehow contributed to me feeling this way? To also ask the question, what was I paying attention to in these situations so that I can begin to start to tease out the underlying factors or causes that are bringing these feelings about, and so therefore find more practical steps for what to do. When we are feeling like we don't belong or we have less in common with people than we think, it's often really helpful to look for the common ground. So being able to really tune into the things that brought us together. So when I looked around, there were things that actually united us in a way that I felt put me right in the middle of this circle. Sometimes our minds sort of bring along this giant expectation of how things should be or how they should turn out, where in reality it's really nice to simply stay open and present and being willing to start small. So begin by simply interacting with maybe one or two people that are sitting right next to you. And if those people don't appear to be terribly approachable, sort of build your confidence to reach out and try someone else and to approach those people with open questions. So being able to make eye contact, smile, and simply ask them about their experience. How are they finding things? What brought them there? They might feel very relieved that you have reached out and approached them. When it comes to belonging, it's good to keep in mind that our need to belong is one of our most fundamental needs, and we are social creatures whose survival and health depend on our ability to feel connected, included, and appreciated. This little video is here to remind you that if you look around your life, there will always be places where you do belong. First and foremost, you always, always belong to yourself. You own yourself and you own your actions and you own your feelings. And at the end of the day, you ought to be your own best friend and act in a way or speak to yourself in a way that helps you accept yourself and value yourself for who you are. And when you do that, it then becomes easier to bring that positive regard to your interactions with other people. I wish you well. And if you have any suggestions about how you find ways of belonging, please drop them below the video.